Welcome to the regular briefing session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Today we're briefing for the meeting of May 19th. For those watching on television, this is, of course, probably a tape on Cinco de Mayo, but we have a lot of conversation to cover. And to get that started, I would call on Don Martin, who is our vice chairman. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Chairman Plowler. And we're actually going to take a look for the first briefing of May the 19th. And I believe our county manager is going to walk us through this draft agenda and point out a couple of key issues coming up. So we are ready.
All right, very good. Good afternoon. And what we have today is we'll do our kind of normal sort of abbreviated review of the items that will go into more detail next Thursday. And then we do have two matters in closed session. So we ought to be able to get through the first part of this pretty pretty quickly. So the first three items on this agenda are actually planning items that y'all dealt with before. And so I was going to see if Kurt could come up. You've had the presentation on all three, and if he can just provide an update on the conversations around the City County Utility Commission's sort of the question, what would it take? Is the developer, in this case, is willing to build parts of those systems within the specifications of the Utility Commission? So.
Thank you, Dudley. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Again, just to provide a little more information on where we stand with these three zoning cases in relation to their private sewer. We've been in conversations with the attorneys and Courtney Driver and other City County Utilities Commission staff, as well as the petitioner for two of these three cases so far. And it's looking like that we would be able to put in some enforceable language that the developer would agree to, where they would construct the material and sizing of those gravity-fed pipes internal to their development, as well as the force main, to CCUC standards, so that if some point, if the Utilities Commission had to take that facility over, they would be up to Commission standards. The other piece that you all expressed some concerns about at previous discussions was the private lift station on site. Courtney did look into that with the developer, and it looks like if a developer was to do a lift station to CCUC standards rather than state standards, that would be roughly 3 times as expensive, just due to some of the things such as installing 3-phase power, installing a multi-hour wet well that could kind of catch some overflow capacity, and that would probably be a little more difficult for the developer to bear out. So Courtney and I talked this morning, and what she would propose, and she's going to be talking to the developer about this, is if they could kind of front load some sort of escrow account that could be put into place prior to certificates of occupancy being issued for anyone to live in the development. That way, if there was anything catastrophic that happened to that lift station, the developer would be able to fund repair of that. It wouldn't fall on the homeowners before they kind of got into a position of living there long enough to fund that balance. And it would likely mean that the commissioners wouldn't be put in a position of being petitioned to accept this infrastructure. Just to also to keep you informed, Courtney plans on having conversations with her Utilities Commission members next week at their meeting, just about examining some of the policies in general around our standards for private infrastructure. She did mention to me this morning that when they developed those policies in 2008 for private lift stations and the like, they didn't really have a lot of experience with that. So they're going to make sure that they're not asking for things that are unrealistic, and they're kind of benchmarking peer communities as well. So just to summarize, we do think that there's a way to move forward on this for the public hearing on the 19th with a couple of enforceable conditions, assuming the commissioners are comfortable with those. And obviously, we need to get written confirmation from the developer to be compliant with state statute.
And I'd just like to point out, there have not been conversations with me about these proposed conditions, so it's something we're going to need to talk about to make sure there is something that is enforceable and something that could be used as a standard going forward until either the UDO and or utilities can come up with a workable solution. But I'm just hearing about these for the first time right now.
And Courtney is going to be sending those out later today, but she did have some other engagements this morning, so she wasn't able to button that up.
As I was telling some of my fellow board members earlier, I was in Kernersville this week, and one of the plumbing and HVAC company, Sutton Brothers, just so you know, they were complaining about the fact that Forsyth County is the only county in our area that requires the cast pipe from the lift station to the system, I think. And everybody else is allowing plastic. If you could just mention that to Courtney somewhere along the line, that might be something that needs to be changed as well.
I'll absolutely pass that on, Commissioner Kaplan, and that actually is something that came up at a developers forum meeting we had last week as well, and her staff certainly heard that as well.
And if I understood you correctly, at least what at the moment you suggested was that the internal lines to the lift station, which typically are going to be a gravity drain, and then from the lift station forward would all be, they're proposing metal. That's kind of the two developers have kind of agreed to that.
Correct.
I suspect that cost differential is not out the roof.
Correct. Again, they didn't get into the specifics with Greg Garrett, the developer, or the responsible party for the development entity, but he did at least give verbal concurrence that he was willing to do that.
Please.
Mr. Vice Chairman, last week there was a developer in that's got yet another one out there. And so Mr. Ellerman came in. I think some other commissioners talked to him. And we were listening about the other development that they got in the works. Well, anyway, I was trying to find out the things that were different. And you mentioned one, the three-phase power. And in some locations, there is not three-phase power. It has to be lines built there at various places. That's all I can tell you. Seemed to me like I asked about the flow. Flow was all the same amount of flow. And one of the things, you may have mentioned the term, some additional storage at the, I would guess that'd be somewhere close to a lift station. And I think that would be in the event that if a pump went down, one of these things goes down, they ain't gonna fix that thing in an hour. It's gonna take a while to probably do it. So I would guess that's what I believe that's what the person said that was for. Plastic pipe, Mr. Kaplan, that's been something that's been some discussion about in the commission ever since I've been here. And they've got the opinion that, and others in the past have got the opinion that the cast iron pipe that they use is better. Don't want to change. So, but if I had my choices and which one would last the longer, I would take my choice with a plastic. And if I could live to the end of the time that plastic pipe would last, that's what I wouldn't mind doing. But that's probably not going to happen. But the point is, I think the stuff will last a long time. It's not just little thin plastic stuff. The wall on the stuff is about a half-inch thick, and many. Well, I sort of give up on it years ago, so I was kind of interested in it, and at the time there was many using it, and if it was a problem with it, it would have showed up now. But I guess it's like if you drive a Chevrolet or if you drive a Ford, and if you feel like it lasts a long time, it's better than the other, and you're going to maybe keep on driving the Chevrolet or the Ford, so keep on using cast iron pipe. So I'm not criticizing, really. I'm just giving my opinion. I think that plastic pipe is good, and I agree with the attorney that there's, I think, probably right many facts surrounding this, and I think it best that the facts gets worked out as best they can before coming in here and we're trying to hammer it out right here. That is not the place to, this is fact-oriented stuff. It's not just, well, it is. So hopefully that could be done. And I don't know all of the, I thought there, and it probably is, it's going to be, will be additional cost. And the thing I see about it is, if the states wouldn't put in a standard that was substandard, you can put standards maybe stronger, and that's, I think it's what there is in the commission. And a private system would work, I believe. The thing about that is, if there's problems somewhere, if there's not some kind of escrow account or something to fix a station in case one goes down, and then further on down the road, if something happened and they wanted the commission to take over a station, then there's going to be costs there that's going to have to be bared by someone. Either the commission would either pay for it, or the Development Homeowners Association would. And that's what is, my focus is, that if something like that is not, don't have a plan, if it, well, commission, they have problems with their stuff, but they got the funds to fund it with. And that homeowners association people just know that whatever is finally decided, if it's a public system allowed to be put in place, that if there's problems in the future, that it's most likely going, as long as it remains private, it would be paid for, to any repairs to fix, be paid for by the homeowners association, and that goes back to the individuals that owns houses.
I'll just say one other thing. I think this has been said before, but again, it's kind of fortuitous that the commissioners are seeing 3 of these cases simultaneously, just because we're actually seeing more of these, and you're going to see a couple more in the next cycle of cases we bring over here, just because we've kind of reached the point of saturation with the developable sites, or the easily developable sites in the county. And, you know, to kind of deal with the housing shortage and other things, we're seeing developers bring in sites that formerly were undevelopable, but now the cost metrics work in the favor to make these things developable on private sewer. So again, I think it's forward thinking of the commissioners to go ahead and address this comprehensively.
Yeah, it really, and I would just add, it really has triggered a whole conversation. There's sort of the short-term conversation about what to do with these 3, but it has accelerated a conversation at the Utilities Commission about Utility Commission participation financially as these come up. Areas where they call it kind of the sewer sheds, where there's going to be development that's going to ultimately flow back into the Utilities Commission's system. And so in talking with Courtney, she's got kind of a short-term strategy around what's the best thing to do with these that will set the stage for a Utility Commission policy, maybe a policy on the that's sort of expandable in the planning side of things. And then really long-term, given the announcements that we've had, the truth of the matter is that no matter what happens in the short-term economic cycles, over the long haul, there's going to be a lot of growth in the county. Some of it's transportation related, some of it's large projects that we know are on the books that will create demand, and the other part's just what we've known has happened through the growth of that crescent, the Piedmont Crescent. So
I would hope that next week that Ms. Driver could certainly be here. And I still would like to know from the developers exactly how much the added expense is. And, I mean, I think they need to know an exact amount before they start this project, because eventually it'd be handed off to the buyer.
Absolutely, Commissioner Wisenhunt will get that information at your briefing next week.
Thank you.
I had a related question to that too, Mr. Vice Chair. When you mentioned the front load escrow account the developers perhaps would put up, they're going to pass those costs on eventually to the homeowners, aren't they?
That's very likely, Commissioner Elamine, just in terms of higher prices for the housing, purchase prices.
And I'll just add, I'm not, again, this is the first time I've heard of this. I'm not entirely comfortable with that concept since it's not in the UDO. So that's something we'll have to think about, this escrow account.
In that vein, do the commissioners have the authority to require an escrow account on a developer or homeowners association?
Those are all, that's a good question. I don't really know where this idea came from. Presumably the escrow account would be something that would be handed off to the homeowners association, but as you know, those many times don't come into existence until a certain state of the development. So that could be a couple years down the line, or it's just very complicated, and I don't think it's probably not something this board wants to get into at this point, because it would be hard to replicate what that would be from project to project.
But I mean, most homeowners associations, if you have a non-state road or state adopted, or you have an escrow account for paving down the road, and I would think it would be similar to that. But I just don't know if we have. If you could check to see if we have the authority to even require.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever required an escrow account in one of these, and actually, it would, I don't know. I can look into it. Thank you.
Just in terms of our kind of thinking about it internally, at least in the city, we have operation and maintenance agreements for stormwater ponds and subdivisions going forward as part of their Phase 2 stormwater standards. And again, those are kind of loaded to ensure adequate maintenance, and then homeowners kick in. But certainly the county's under state stormwater rules, so I'm not aware of those kind of accounts being in place in the county jurisdiction.
If there's not some fund that's in place with a private system, it's going to, the lift station is going to require maintenance, and I don't know what the life of the equipment is in one, but if it remains private, and whenever there is need for repair or replacement, then if there's not some kind of fund in place, since it's private, not a government entity, then how would repairs get done? The funding of it.
Typically, what would happen is the homeowners association would charge annual fees, and those fees would build up to, to handle such a thing like that. I mean, as Commissioner Kaplan referred to last week, they handle private roads, and so they have to build up balances to handle those.
Well, they would need to start a system early on. They wouldn't want to wait till they needed to repair, because there'd be no funds there. That's my thought.
Yeah, the developer will have to deal with that early on. In addition to just getting it repaired, if you allow the sewage to bubble up out of the wet well, and it has an overflow, you will be fined by the state for that. And so they are regulated by DENR. So the homeowners would also be subject to fines. So really, it creates this awareness that, a sewer lift station will fail and does fail. It's just mechanical and it runs all the time. And so it's a good conversation to have as you're talking about a proposed development, especially one that's already connected into the utility commission's system. So, we've got package plants throughout the county and they operate in subdivisions today. I don't think we're talking about trying to do anything with those that, we're really talking about, the Utilities Commission is talking about the ones that are likely to want to connect into that system. Let's get out in front of that.
But I just want to make one other, I appreciate all the discussion, particularly about the plastic pipe versus the metal. It looks like there ought to be, that ought to be an industry-proven thing, which is lasting longer, because I've dealt with a little bit of that plastic pipe issue too, and man, I agree. I'm with Commissioner Linville. I'd like to live as long as it will last. So I am kind of curious about that, because it begs the question, then why is the Utilities Commission using metal instead of plastic? Kind of begs that question. If the plastic is in fact better, longer lasting and cheaper, that begs sort of a whole nother question in the mix of that. It looks like somebody would have that researched and know that. I mean, sewers are kind of everywhere.
I can provide the answer to that, Dr. Martin, or at least the answer the utility staff provided last week at the Developers Forum. Their concern with PVC and similar types of non-metal pipe is penetration from backhoes and other things when you're dealing with site work. So they've actually seen case studies where folks have run cameras down systems that have been based on that pipe and seen penetrations, which are to make that fail much quicker than the metal pipe. So that was where kind of some of the hesitancy was based upon.
Deal with potential future digging that people don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
And so the metal pipe's tougher.
Yeah, there's errant folks when they're kind of doing the yard work or other maintenance and things of that nature. So it was more idiot-proof, to use a phrase.
Backhoe resistant. Yeah, I hear that. That's interesting. Yeah, well, I think all we're trying to do is to help homeowners and prevent future problems and help homeowners. I mean, that we're just trying to be it is helping citizens. It is not creating unnecessary regulation.
All right, thanks.
All right, well, Commissioner Wisenhunt will provide you that information on the cost specifics at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And next Thursday, we'll dive into these with sort of that background information. If it looks like we're going to need to push this off, we maybe will do that. So, all right, other items on the agenda, I'll go through these fairly quickly. You got 4 special resolutions. You got May is 2022 is Foster Care Awareness Month. You've got National EMS Week in Forsyth County, and we'll hear about that. There are 2 resolutions that Commissioner McDaniel had asked to be included on the agenda. One we had actually had some discussion about a year or so ago, and it's a resolution affirming and committing to the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Forsyth County, North Carolina. Sort of thinking of that in advance of Pride Month, which I believe is next month. And then also the resolution recognizing June 19th, 2022 is Juneteenth, annual Independence Day in Forsyth County. And you've actually have hard copies of those resolutions. If you've got any wordsmithing or any concerns about any of that language, let us know and we'll try to get that into what we present next Thursday. Got the minutes, which we'll get done. You've actually got 2 items related to Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. You've got a revision to the 2021-2022 plan. You'll hear about that. That's just some additional funding. And then you've got the plan that next year's initial allocation will be based on. You've got an item related to the Sheriff's Juvenile Intervention Investigation Team. When that was originally approved, it went into effect on July 1st. Clearly, they want to go ahead and get started, and so they're asking to move that date up. And so that's a thing that's fairly easy to do, and we'll be able to work through that. I don't think there are huge budget implications to that because there's going to be some staff vacancy through the time, and we should be okay. And we'll know going into the end of the ARPA funds in fall of 2024. You got 4 contracts. You've got a contract for the purchase of some vests for the detention staff, really trying to address some safety concerns in the building around inmates being able to sharpen pieces of plastic and other They call them something, but I can't remember what basically making a weapon. So they wanted to make sure provide additional safety for detention staff. You've got our extension of our wellness program. We contract with Wake Forest Baptist and are interested in pushing that pushing any potential changes off a year. We'll talk about that next Thursday. Fuel surcharge rate. Unbelievably, when we put the original fuel surcharge plan out there, we capped it at $5. Diesel fuel is now over $5, and so we're talking about trying to just extend that with the same formula that we've had and putting that in place. That has been a tremendous tool that allows us to move those rates with fuel surcharges, since that's a big part of the cost associated with the solid waste franchises. Couple of interlocal agreements. Excuse me. You got an interlocal agreement with the City of Winston to lease and renovate space in the Forsyth County Public Safety Building for emergency dispatch. You'll hear a pretty extensive presentation. We've been working on this for a couple of years, actually, that's a co-location in our building with the two primary answering points in the county. That is a good move toward maybe a future full consolidation, but we're not quite there yet. And then really an effort that item 716, which is an effort to consolidate fire dispatch. Fire dispatch matches up much better with EMS and emergency management first responder. There's some real reasons to do that, and we'll talk through that. And then you've got an interlocal agreement with Forsyth County and Forsyth Tech around the Lansing Drive property and who does what out there in terms of security and so on and so forth. There's a resolution exercising an option to purchase real property from WPDA. That's the property that we did a long-term lease really to support the Whitaker Park Development Project. Believe it or not, that's been 5 years. At the end of 5 years, to coincide with the rentals gift and some requirements around that, we can actually finally now purchase that for a fairly small amount of money, which was sort of the terminal payment in that lease. Tax refunds, and then the annual appointment that's necessary for John Burgess as tax assessor collector, and then fuel surcharge. So it's not a long agenda, but it is a pretty involved agenda and some things that we've been working on for quite some time. So we'll dive into those more deeply next Thursday. We do have we have any discussion items? I forgot to look if we had any that were, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Ashley.
I think we moved them all to the 10 a.m. sessions.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah.
So we may have cleared those out. So maybe we have a little bit easier session next week. I will be talking with you early on about, we're going to, well, actually, I think Janet Spriggs is next Thursday. So I think Janet presents her budget next Thursday, so we will have that. And then we will be giving you a little bit more budget information as our recommended budget starts taking shape. So you'll be getting that kind of as we go. So that is it for today, except for the closed session motion.
And next Thursday, we're meeting at 9 o'clock at Smith Reynolds Airport to dedicate 2 hangars. Is that correct?
Is it 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
That's correct.
It is at 9 o'clock. I requested that time because we have some people coming in.
So that means we'll have a very nice long day.
You will.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you didn't at all. I'm actually waiting on if y'all want me to do a closed session motion or anybody else got anything.
Ted just made that. I'll second the motion.
Well, let me read the closed session motion.
Read it first.
Go ahead and read it.
Yep, need to ask the board to
Listen
consider.
closely, Ted.
That's right. Need the board to ask, consider a motion to go into closed session, discuss 2 matters: to establish and instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken on or by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price or other material terms of a contract, proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease pursuant to provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A5. And since there's no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
I'll second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And happy Mother's Day.